Hey everyone, Simon here. In this video, I'm going to share some lessons and techniques from Vedic astrology and Ayurveda on how to look at depression, but really how to look at any dis-ease, any level of discomfort or irregularity in the body, mind, and spirit. And so the first principle to understand, this is from Ayurveda, which is the science of life, of health and longevity, the ancient tradition of India, tells us that disease can happen from three levels. And these levels have big Sanskrit names. They are ADHYATMIK, ADHIBHAUTIK, and ADHIDAIVIK. And those are fancy ways of saying Adhyatmic means arising from the self or having to do with the physical body, okay? Adibhautik is having to do with your environment. So for example, something arising from the self, say your microbiome is out of whack, right? That's something that's a problem in your body. Adibhautik is you trip and fall and break your leg, or something falls on you, right? Your environment. Or there's a hurricane and a tree falls on you, that's your environment acting on you. Or you touch something and you get germs, and those germs invade your system and you catch a cold or flu or whatever it is. So the third level is called Adhidaivik, which means arising from acts of God. Now this is where it gets a little mysterious and spiritual, but there is such a thing as in Ayurveda as spiritual diseases. And that means either acts of God or a lack of connection to your deep spiritual self. Now, this may sound a little weird and crazy. How can that be a cause of disease? Or, how can that cause my arm to hurt, for example? But I would put it to you that something like your arm hurting, when an Ayurvedic doctor or a Vedic astrologer sits in front of you to perhaps help you assess the situation, they're going to look at your chart to see whether the cause is adhyatmic, physical, arising from the self, meaning there's some disorder with the musculature in the arm or whatnot, or if it's maybe environmental, maybe it's something in your environment about how you hold yourself, your posture. Or it could be that you're not living your dharma, you're not living your purpose in life. And because of that, you slouch. And because of the way you slouch, it's creating pain in your arm. So your arm becomes a symptom of a bigger problem, which is, I don't know why I'm on this planet, and I'm unhappy because I'm not fulfilling my purpose. I know this may sound far out, but the various causes of disease have multifactorial etiology, meaning their causes can be from very different places. In fact, chiropractors, one of the, I think, tests on the chiropractic exam back in the day was, what is the most important muscle for posture? What is the most important postural muscle? And a lot of people got this question wrong because they would say, oh, maybe it's the transverse abdominis or the, erector spinae. No, it's your calf muscles. Because if your calf muscles are tight, then your knees will buckle in, your body will try to compensate. And as a result, the whole kinetic chain gets out of whack and you have neck pain. And so you have neck pain because your calves are tight. That's the real reason. Now, and you can massage your neck all you want and it's going to help. The real reason is you have to stretch your calves, okay? Now, I say this because I have a background in personal training and fitness and many years of doing that profession. And so I've seen this over and over in clients. So my point in saying this is, don't discount a cause, even if it seems a little weird. So let's get into this. So the first level is the body, the second level is your environment, the third level is your connection to the divine. You have a spiritual connectedness in your life. This is interesting because people who sometimes lack a spiritual connection will transfer that into a desire to fix their government, because In Vedic astrology, the sun, S-U-N, represents both God, spirit, and the divine. It also represents the king or the queen, the royalty, the ruling class, and the government. And so those of us who don't have a connection to our spiritual lives often transfer that desire to connect to something higher by looking at our government and saying, oh, the king or the queen is not ruling right. I'm going to put all my effort and attention on that. And okay, that's one way to do it. But the real thing that's crying out for is a desire for a spiritual connection. All right, so let's take a look at how this works in Vedic astrology. So, oh, and by the way, just before I go there, this is a graph from my books, 5 Dharma Types, actually the second book, Sex, Love, and Dharma, where we discuss these 3 levels of Dharma and how understanding your Dharma type goes a long way towards helping you find your purpose in life, and as a result, at least taking care of that level of wellness, which is the second level. But let's take a look at the chart to see how we can diagnose specifically depression and what we can do about it, both from a Vedic astrology standpoint as well as from an Ayurvedic standpoint. So in Vedic astrology, we have 3 ascendants, 3 rising signs, if you will. So one of them is your normal ascendant, which is the first house of your chart. And in the northern chart, it looks like this. In the southern, it varies. The second ascendant is based on the placement of your moon. And so the moon being here, this would be the second ascendant in this chart, okay? And the third ascendant is based on the placement of the sun. And so this is the sun ascendant. Now, I'm sure those of you who study Vedic astrology are familiar with this, and when you check for combinations for success, for profession, and so on, you check them from the physical ascendant, from the moon ascendant, and from the sun ascendant, or the Udaya Lagna, Chandra Lagna, and Surya Lagna, respectively. So one way to look at depression, by the way, this isn't the only way to look at this, but one way to diagnose, again, we're not diagnosing, to evaluate potential depressive influences, if you will, is to look at what Saturn is doing, and specifically how it's affecting one of these 3, either of these 3 ascendants, and also the Upagraha Gulika. Gulika is like Saturn's shadow. It's a shadow. And I've seen this in a number of charts. This comes from my own personal practice and experience. When Gulika, for example, is very tight on the ascendant. Now, this isn't a real person. This is a made-up chart. But when Gulika sits on the ascendant, it's like the person is born under a cloud. And there is a shadow, and it's always kind of 70% chance of precipitation in their life. And so what do we do with this? Well, okay, before we talk about what to do with this, the same applies to Saturn. So here is one rule of thumb. If Gulika or Saturn influence the Udaya Lagna, the main Lagna, then there may be depression based on, in the physical body, based on ADHYATMIC causes. If they influence the moon, now Saturn here is not influencing the moon, but nor is Gulika, but if they did, that would be depression based on on a deeper level, on a mental level, on an emotional level, and possibly hormonal chemical level. And if they influence the sun or the Surya Lagna, then it would be a spiritual crisis. And so knowing whether the person is undergoing a physical crisis, mental, emotional, or psychological crisis, or a spiritual crisis is very important, because it helps us then to manage our recommendations. So some astrologers go, oh, you have this problem, put on this ring. Well, yeah, if your gut health is not good, wearing a ring isn't going to help you. necessarily. Taking probiotics will help you, right? If your arm is broken, wearing a ring isn't going to help, or even saying a certain mantra isn't going to help. You need to get that set, fixed, go to the hospital. That's a physical issue. And likewise, if you have a spiritual issue, taking, aspirin and Aleve isn't going to help. Taking antidepressants probably is not going to help if it's a spiritual issue, if the cause is ADHIDAIVIK. And I suppose I should write these down. ADHYATMIKA. Now I'm writing the Sanskrit, so if you speak Hindi, it would be ADHYATMIK. Okay, but the true Sanskrit is ADHYATMIKA, is arising from the self or body. ADHIBHAUTIKA, arising from the environment or outside the self. And ADHIDAIVIKA, arising from spiritual causes, let's say, okay? So in this case, in this example, we have Gulika on the ascendant. So this person may actually have a physical deficiency. Now, Gulika being a shadow, the texts say the remedy for Gulika is to take a deepa, a lamp, and offer it into a Shiva temple. So you go to a Shiva temple, you offer light. Now, okay, what if this is someone who is not a Hindu, or who doesn't have access to a temple? The idea is bringing light to your life. So this person may have low vitamin D levels. Believe it or not, I've seen this a number of times. When Saturn or Gulika are very tight on the ascendant or even the moon, the person may actually have a vitamin D deficiency. They lack light in their life, or their skin isn't able to convert the light into the appropriate hormones. So very simply, they just need exposure to light. And that's a physical level treatment. That's an adhyatmic level treatment. So again, this person doesn't need a sapphire or a diamond ring or whatever it is. They need light. They need a physical remedy. Now, what if, let's see if we go back a little bit here. So if we make the chart so that, let's just go actually forward. And all right, let's try that. So now we have Moon, Saturn together. So now Saturn is influencing the Moon. And of course, Gulika is also on the ascendant. So now we have a double. This is again a hypothetical chart. Now we have a level of affliction. We have the physical level afflicted by Gulika and of course Mars and Ketu. We can't forget those malefics. But we also have a mental affliction. In his book, let me share my screen here. Johann Hari is an author who recently wrote a book on depression called Lost Connections. And in it, one of his strongest theses is that depression is often associated with a lack of purpose, a lack of, like, am I really here just to make money, eat, sleep, and repeat, that type of thing? Or is there something else to life? And he makes a good case for that being one of the causes. Of course, there are physical causes. So that in Vedic astrology, that's the second level. How am I getting along with my environment, with my society? Do I fit in with my society? Am I giving my gift to the world? And a person who has Saturn on the moon may not feel that they are fitting into society. Remember, the moon is public. The moon is the world and nature and the environment as well. And so somehow the person feels they don't fit in. And so the remedy here may be, okay, yes, maybe they still need light, right? Because they're under a shadow. But now they may need to learn about dharma. They may need to learn about how to fit in, how to share their gifts with the world. And so that's a fitting remedy. They may also need, because the moon also rules hormones and the chemistry in your body, they may literally have a shadow on their mind, in the sense that part of their brain isn't receiving or isn't activated. So they may need, this is where drugs may work, in herbs. So if you have a second level thing, you take herbs from the outside, from your environment, and you ingest them and make them part of you. So doing your dharma, prescribing herbs and chemicals, could help when the moon is afflicted, the moon lagna is afflicted. My teacher had this experience where, this was when he was living in India. He was a very well-known astrologer. And a thief, professional thief, came to him and said, "Guruji, I know you are the best, and I know that you will tell me the best time to go and do this job, because I really need it, and I come to you in earnestness." And so my teacher, he saw that the person truly was earnest, and he said, "No problem." He calculated the time by hand, the chart, boom, 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 said, "Okay, go on this day, Thursday night, between 11:30 and 12, and the job will be perfect." Okay? So of course, the thief goes, finishes the job, comes back a week or two later and says, "Thank you, Guruji, that was perfect. Can you please give me a time for my next job?" Next job meaning when I'm going to go rob something. So my teacher looks again, he does the chart, scratches his head a little bit, says, the times aren't so good this time, so what you need to do is go to a Hanuman temple and do this seva, do this particular ritual. You have to carry water up the stairs and come back and carry water up the stairs a number of times, 7, 8 times, then you'll have no problem. Okay, the thief, he's convinced, he knows, the Guruji is perfectly, is the real deal. So he goes, does that thing, pulls the job, perfect, no problems. So a month later, he comes back to the Guru, and he says, "Okay, you've helped me twice now. I know you will help me once again. Please tell me the best time." And so this time, Mr. Mantri does the chart, scratches his head, he hems and haws, and he says, "Boy, this time is even more difficult. So now you will have to go to this temple and spend a month there doing seva and service. And then the job will be perfect, no problem." So the thief goes, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be hard." Okay, but he's devoted. And the Guru knows the thief's heart. He knows he's a devoted person. He knows he's disciplined. And so he gives him this task. So what happens? The thief goes up to the temple and he never comes back. After several weeks there, he realizes the error of his ways and he becomes a monk. And so his life is transformed because he's found a new purpose. And this is as far as I know, a true story. And if it's not, literally true, its essence is certainly true. But I don't doubt that this was a real case, because my teacher had many such people come to him. So the idea here is, if you are a counselor, a healer, a Vedic astrologer, give your client the kind of remedy that will help them and eventually help them find their purpose. And that's for the second level of dharma. So, and of course, second level, and for this person, it became a third level of dharma, because it was about finding their spiritual life. So the third level is also exemplified in this chart, because here we can see that Saturn, in addition to influencing the moon, also aspects the sun with his square or 10th aspect. In the south, you can see there 4 rashis apart. Saturn here aspects the sun. So if Saturn or Gulika are influencing the sun in the horoscope, then the cause of the person's depression may be a lack of spiritual connection. And in this case, now we have all three. We have Gulika on the ascendant, we have Saturn on the moon and Saturn on the sun. So all three ascendants are afflicted by these two shadow planets, not to mention Ketu and Mars. Now, again, this is an example chart, but and I didn't plan this in advance, but often examples just come up to reinforce the teaching. So in this case, this is something that Ayurveda calls SANNIPATIKA, which is all three doshas coming together, all three possible pathogenic factors influencing an outcome. And so here you will need a physical remedy. So maybe the person needs to go to a tanning salon if they need more vitamin D, or more, vitamin D supplementation, or other ways to get light and positive hormone balance. Then they may need herbs. They may need to study dharma in a way to get in touch with their environment. And finally, they may need a way to connect with God and the divine. And one of the best ways that I'm aware of, there are millions of mantras in the Vedic tradition, but one of the ways that I am aware of is the Vishnu Sahasranama, the mantra to Vishnu, the 1,000 names of the divine, because that mantra brings light into your life. And especially if you have a shadow on your moon or sun or ascendant, it's always good to have light in your life. And it brings spiritual light by drawing the sattvic nature. Now, here's this word, light in the Vedic tradition. There are many terms for light, Jyoti and so on. But one of the terms that reflects the light's effect on our lives is sattva. Sattva literally means beingness, being one with yourself. Sat means being. Tva is ness. It's like our suffix ness. So sattva, not sattva, sattva is the essence of being at one with yourself. And the Vishnu Sahasranama mantra is Sahasranama, 1,000 names of the divine, is one of the best ways to bring sattva into your life and heal your relationship with the people around you, with your family, with your teachers, with your clients, and to get your own mind right. Now, this isn't the only mantra, but this is one of the best, in my opinion, that works well for bringing sattva, balance, harmony, and light into the life in a spiritual connection. And as I mentioned earlier, in Vedic astrology, the sun stands for God and spirit, but it also stands for the government. And when you see people who are very, government-oriented, the prime minister is not doing this, or we need to elect somebody new, we're Tea Party, or we're whatever. When they're too concerned with the powers that be, it's okay to be concerned. It's okay to, love your country and so on. That's fine. But when a person is a little too in that direction, they say that fanaticism, when someone is so fanatic, they usually have very little belief in what they profess to believe. And this is the case. When people become too concerned about this, they're actually looking for a spiritual connection. They're looking for truth, and they don't know where to find it. So they turn to the king, the governor, the prime minister, president, whoever it is. And so my teacher always used to say, take care of your own life. And just as Jesus said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's and take care of your business, right? That's not to say that one shouldn't be involved in their society and so on. If that's your way of creating light and creating harmony in your environment, great, right? That's okay. So what am I trying to say? If you're an astrologer and you see a client that has an issue with the ADHIDAIVIK, the spiritual level, then give them a spiritual solution. Spiritual solution can be, and it should hit you in the heart. You'll feel what that solution is. Or you know, CNN will come on and they'll start talking about Trump, and you can say, hey, maybe you should get involved with your community and voting, and, you know, for your political party, and that may be a solution. Or give them the Vishnu Sahasranama or another mantra that will bring light into their life. A Gayatri mantra, Aditya Hridaya mantra, Tato Yuddha Parishrantam Samare Samupastitam. It's a beautiful mantra, brings light into your life, because even Rama was depressed, right? That's why in this mantra, in part of the Ramayana, Rama was depressed. And so Agastya Rishi comes and Rama Rama Mahabaho Shrinu Guhyam Sanatanam, right? Listen to this ancient secret because you've forgotten the truth. So the Aditya Hridaya mantra, Gayatri mantra, these all bring light into your consciousness. So those are spiritual solutions. Sunbathing is a level of solution, but that's more on the physical level. So I know I've kind of wandered around in this video, but the idea here is understanding, first of all, the 3 levels of illness and depression. And they're the physical, that's the ascendant, the environmental, but also the mental, that's the moon, and the spiritual, that's the sun. So if one of these 3 is most afflicted, focus on that and give a remedy. If 2 of them are, or 3 of them are, then you have to give multiple remedies. And that's where, for example, this is where gemstones might work at the 2nd and the 3rd level. Certain rituals might work at the 3rd level, okay? And Ayurveda says as much. If a problem is physical, treat it using daily routine, exercise, herbs, and so on. If it's mental, treat it using prayer, using ritual, helping the person find their dharma, and so on. And if it's spiritual, then only prayer and ritual, you know, will work. The physical stuff won't. All right, so I hope this little video was useful to you guys. Hit me up if you have any questions. Write down your questions underneath, and I will try to respond. And yeah, and hopefully you can use this in your practice. All right, take care for now. Bye-bye.